My name is Olga Kikou, and I'm a member of the board of the Green Institute, Greece. The Green Institute is a foundation which was established in 2011, just a little bit over 2 years ago. And its aim is to work on issues of political ecology and ecological thinking. And basically we support research, study, analysis, dissemination of information on issues that have to do with political ecology. There's outside, if anyone is interested, there's a small brochure on the Green Institute and what we're doing. I'm very glad I'm here today, and I'm very glad that this project has actually come into fruition, because this is something that we discussed quite a few months ago. We did not know how to, when we first learned about the projects, the mega projects that were planned in Turkey, we wanted to somehow get involved and support the efforts to stop some of these projects and actually expose to the public the consequences of these projects and try to raise awareness and see what possible solutions we can come up with. So what we try to do is basically we together with our Turkish partners, we got engaged in developing a conference that would do exactly this, that would actually try to raise awareness, bring all these projects to the attention of the public, and try to find solutions how to move forward. So I'm very glad I'm here today, and I can see the outcome of all these efforts. I think the outcome of this conference can be food for thought for actually, for journalists, academics, citizens, and people who are involved in saving the environment and saving the land that we live in. It's we need to see that some of these projects actually go beyond the borders of a particular country. As we saw yesterday, there are similar issues and problems that are taking place across the Balkans, and as we know for sure across the world. So it is, I think, only through cooperation we can make something happen. Very briefly today, I will try to raise some other issues that have to do not necessarily with the environmental consequences that were discussed yesterday, but with the issue of citizen engagement and how we can actually get the public to participate in and have a role in democracy and have actually and encourage democratic participation. And of course, in the end, we are all talking about social change and how we can bring about change. So I am going to talk a little bit about what is going on in the EU in one particular channel of actually public participation, and maybe raise some issues and sort of develop ideas about what people can do in other countries. I know Turkey is not in the EU, but at some point in the future it will be. But certainly there, we do have similarities and differences across the different nations in the EU and outside the EU. So sometimes we need to develop common tools that can work best for us. Well, if we look at the issue of citizen engagement in general, we see two different channels. We see the actual grassroots engagement of people, development of social movements, where we have a lot of activists, we have campaigning, we have activism on the part of the citizens, and we also have another level of citizen engagement, which is a more formalized and more institutional level of participation. Commission. And this is done through the EU institutions and through lobbying at the EU institutions, through various forms of organizations and collectivities. There are also other processes, like, for example, petitions. Even in the EU, in the Parliament, there's a petitions committee. We have referenda, which can take place at local or national level. And we have something else, a tool which has been recently developed, and this is called the European Citizens Initiative, or another word for it is ECI. What is the ECI? The ECI is actually a call on the European Commission, and I guess some of you know the European Commission is a body within the EU which proposes legislation. It's a call on the European Commission to actually propose legislation on any field where the EU has the competence to legislate. So there are some areas where the EU can legislate, and there are some other areas where it can't. Well, the European Citizens Initiative only refers to those areas where the EU does have the authority to legislate. And it involves basically a collection of 1 million signatures, at least 1 million signatures. This can be online or on paper, which is a bit more difficult to do it on paper. Now, the internet is everywhere. From citizens all over the EU, but they have to be at least from 7 countries, and it has to be a certain number of citizens from each country. So the organizers have to achieve at least a certain number of signatures from each country. And this is to take place within the period of 1 year. So within 12 months from the time that the ECI is officially registered through this process. Finally, the EU Commission, up till now, is getting an idea about what people want, but legally they're not obligated to actually propose legislation. But this is a big incentive for the Commission, certainly to, it's a big push for them to actually propose it. For the time being, there are 17 ongoing ECIs. You can look it up on the internet. There are a number of all sorts of different ECIs. The most, the most well-known one is the water ECI, the so-called water ECI, which is water and sanitation are a human right. Water is a public good, not a commodity. This is basically an effort against the privatization of water services and sanitation services. And it has been supported by unions, by NGOs all over Europe. They have achieved, so far, they have over 1,850,000 signatures, so they have actually closed the ECI, and now it's gone over to the member states. The process is at the member states now, where they're counting the signatures and the valid ones, and then the next process will be a public hearing where the ECI will be all these signatures will be formally presented, and then after that it's up to the Commission to actually propose legislation. So this is a first for the for the EU. The ECI process was described in the Lisbon Treaty. It was decided in the Lisbon Treaty, but however, it has not been fully implemented yet. So this is the first, actually, ECI that, soon we'll see what the final outcome will be and whether the Commission will actually propose the legislation. It is a process where we see that, there are a number of concerns that we have, but we certainly want to see what happens in the end, because if, despite all the efforts that that have taken place, if there is no response from the Commission, no positive response, then it does bring into question, the entire effort of the European Citizens Initiative. Just one more point about the water ECI. It managed to get a lot of signatures because the unions were behind it. Unions across Europe in all the member states. So this means that it might not be so easy for other ECIs. And if you look at the progress of the other initiatives, many of them have not even managed to come close. So there are very, very few which actually come close to the magic number of 1 million, which actually has to be a lot more than 1 million because there will be signatures that are invalid. So this means that, before you start something like this, you need to consider a number of issues. Well, let's look at some of the positive aspects of this particular initiative. First of all, it is an institutional tool for public participation, which encourages public participation. And through this, it does help towards creating awareness. Of course, in order for any initiative to be successful, you need to continuously keep raising awareness. And this means that it does presuppose a big effort on the part of the organizers. However, we can see very positive effects on the public because we see that the public is more aware of the issues, and sometimes when we participate in something, we learn a lot more about other issues that are worthwhile for our participation. So it does help towards further engagement of everyone. And certainly people get involved in the decision-making process by having access and lobbying and pushing their legislators to actually do something about the issues they're concerned with. So this is something positive. It also forces the EU to actually say something back to the people, to actually hear their demands and do something about their demands. The ECI also it's the first transnational tool where people actually come together and they do participate and they do vote for something which is in common for the European community. And this is certainly this encourages people's involvement, and it does bring out the commonalities that we all have in living within a larger community. And it doesn't it also takes away a little bit the issue of borders between member states, because we see that so many issues we share in common, so many problems we have in common. And of course, it does help the networking of the different NGOs at national, local level. It does, bring into the forefront the power of unions. We are talking about civil society here. We're not talking about enterprises and businesses. So this is a good tool. However, it does have a lot of problems too, and it is something new. There are many challenges, and some of these challenges are, of course, they have to do with the multitude of initiatives that are taking place. I mean, if you look, besides the official European Citizens Initiatives, there are other initiatives, there are petitions that are coming, that are, we see in our emails every day. So, you do have a problem sometimes, where you might actually not get engaged because there's so many initiatives. And and petitions. It is a costly undertaking. There has to be a committee that is set up to actually propose an ECI for registration. This committee consists usually of people who are engaged in civil society, but it does, in order to create awareness for anything, you need money. We needed money for this conference here. So you do need money to raise awareness. The internet is very helpful, but we have other ways that are necessary to actually go out to the public, and these a lot of money is involved here. We're talking, some ECIs have actually spent a few €100,000 just to get the process going. The span of 1 year is actually a bit difficult to keep the momentum going. It's not easy to keep the momentum past a few months, so the issue needs to be serious enough and to be actually something which is taking place over a long time. So it cannot be something on the spur of the moment which won't last more than a few days or a few weeks. The particular petition process you need to have some personal data, and actually you need to give some personal data in the registration form, and this might prevent some people from actually signing up. And of course, last but not least, is the fact that the Commission is not necessarily obliged till now to actually propose legislation, and this is something that everyone has in mind. We need to see what will happen with the first few ECIs and how the Commission will respond, but the whole process will be reviewed in 2.5 years from now. So this is something that is being looked at, and it will be. This might change. Of course, we have, as I was talking to someone earlier, we have the issue that sometimes you can have a number of people who do have access to a lot of other people, or who are powerful enough to actually create awareness, who might actually propose something which is which can be quite controversial. And you have nationalist groups, you have all sorts of groups who you can understand, which actually can propose something which is not certainly reflecting the will of the people. So I think this is something that the Commission will actually have to take into consideration. Oops. So what is the way forward? This is what we're trying to do actually, through this conference too. And how do we try to engage people? First of all, people need to be encouraged to participate. They need to be encouraged to, get more involved. They're not, there are many issues in our lives today, and it's not easy to actually devote time. But that's what we're here for. We need to work at both grassroots level and institutional level if we are talking seriously about bringing about change. It's not easy to do one thing without the other. Certainly we need to join other efforts which are taking place across the world. Sometimes we think that we're the only ones who are facing such problems, but we're not. Many problems have different dimensions, and we can find them everywhere. So let's not forget this. The more, the more networks we develop, and the more networking and lobbying we do for our issues, the more successful we'll be in the end. Transparency is another issue that will also be discussed today. The fact that we have, for projects such as, the ones in Turkey, but also in other countries, we have the issue of funding and how do these projects are getting funding, and this is something that we need to demand we need to actually demand that there's going to be transparency, and this is another way for us to put pressure on the people in power. The issue of sustainability is also very important. Some of these projects are certainly not sustainable, and we need. It's up to us to bring these into the forefront and make sure that everybody knows about it, and of course talk about the true costs over time at environmental level, societal level, economic level. A lot of times politicians, they want to make it easy for people to understand something, so they just simplify everything, but a lot of issues are quite complicated. And finally, we need to communicate a vision for the future. We need to sort of bring solutions to the forefront. We need to talk about what our vision is, and sometimes it's easy to try to negate everything and say this is not good, but we also need to give people something else to look forward to, and we need to give people the ideas and the vision that we have for the future, and hopefully we'll get them on our side. This is it. If you have any questions, let me know. Questions? No? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, there is one. Okay, sorry.
First of all, thanks for your presentation. EU and also sure your country have some economical problems. So we know that green politics applications need more money. So do you think that EU governments will do something about this matter in economical crisis?
About which matter, the ECI or our country?
EU governments and your country also.
If they're going to do anything about my country, our country? Well, this is not something easy to actually, I cannot foresee the future, but certainly we know that we do have a lot of involvement from the EU in our country. We have the Troika going on in and out of the country for quite a few years now. It's we don't know whether this will what will happen in the future. We do see, I would say we see that on the part of some countries there has been quite a lot of involvement, but in a negative way, in a way that has a lot of consequences for the people in Greece. On the other hand, so we do have negative involvement, but we also see that we do get a lot of support from people in Europe, social movements, different collectivities, which actually are not, they do not see us as like a foreign body that has a problem. The problem is more endemic within the EU and the current system. And certainly Greece is one example, but if you look at other countries in the EU, they also face a lot of problems. So sometimes, the governments and the ones who have people in power react towards a particular problem, they have reacted with Greece, but that is not necessarily the case with the citizens of some of the same countries.
There's a question.
Thank you.
Okay, so we see here that we have a legal instrument on EU level, pretty well described in the treaty, in the European treaty. So, because we see from the other side that the Turkish society are suffering from the lack of such an instrument, and the clashes is going more and more difficult for the Turkish society. Maybe our Turkish colleague can think to propose through the politicians, through the parliament, some kind of instrument that can, how to say, force a government, not only this one, but I suppose all kind of governments, to react to the public demands in projects or in social issues. So you have the example here from you have also your negotiation with EU. I think that you have a clear argumentation what is going in the country. And yeah, this is my proposal to my Turkish colleague eventually through the parliament to pass some kind of instrument like this.
Mm-hmm. Just a small comment for this. Certainly this is something that is new for the EU. We don't know if it's going to work right or if it's not really going to work. This is an added tool that we have in our hands. It doesn't necessarily mean that Turkey or any other country will actually apply the same, exactly the same instrument. But this is, this is something that exists right now, and we are trying to use it in the EU. Something else that can happen in other countries, EU or non-EU, is certainly the issue of referenda, and we have the same. Both the ECI and the issue of referenda, I think they start from the same idea of actually the idea of participatory direct democracy, of actually the people influencing decision making right there and then. So we might have a number of ways to do that. This is one of them. We don't know how successful this will be, but we are working towards the same the same issue of participatory democracy. This is just one tool.
Okay.
Yes.
I've got a question. It's a bit. It's not particularly on your presentation, but on a project I saw in Greece. And I visited Greece 2 times. One was at the end of the 80s, and the other one after the Olympics. And I was amazed, by the pharaonic scale of the speedway that was constructed between Thessaloniki and Athens. And this is, and I'm a regional planner, and I saw tunnels, I saw bridges, I saw, and I was, in a sense, I can estimate the type of demand that may be inside, but the scale of the projects were, to my mind, is unimaginable. My question is the following: was there not need, but I think that there is no such a need. This is that, and my point is that was there a public discussion, hearing about these projects in the days of the Olympics or in the heydays of? So this. Can you give us a couple of details on it?
Oh yeah, well, during the days of the Olympics, actually in the pre-Olympics era, there was a lot of discussion about the huge projects that were needed. The Greens, as a party, were opposed to to Greece getting hosting the games because of the immense sort of magnitude of this project. and because of all the works that were needed, which were going to be, certainly they were going to have an impact on the environment, and also something else that takes place always with, when a city is actually granted the Olympic Games is the fact that what happens after that? What happens to all these works, all these stadia and all these, the Olympic Village and all these works that are going to be built just for the Olympic Games. Certainly, what was suggested and what was proposed and what was presented to the public before the Olympics has changed a lot actually after the Games, because we saw that, as was the case in other cities too, for example in Sydney, that some of these stadia after the Games, they were not used, and we need to always take into consideration that a small country, because Greece is a small country, you cannot have uses for all of these projects unless you actually design them right from the beginning with another purpose, later on. But because so there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of excitement. However, the Games, we took the game, we got the Games, so the Games took place. There was a lot of excitement during the Games. But what happened after that is, you have a hype, you go up there, and then you go down in a way. And we did. It took some time, but at some point we hit, the crisis, and then after the crisis, now even projects that were sort of that were not as big, they're actually, now they're. They're not being a lot of the works are not being used. Certainly, all the what you said before about the highways. In a country that does not have a good train system that goes around the country, we do not have a real railroad network. You have developers basically which are taking on these big projects, huge parcels of land are being wasted away for these projects, and it also they're very they're environmentally unfriendly in a way, and environmentally destructive, because it's not just the actual project itself, it's actually what it sends, the image and the message that it sends to the public. And when you have big highways, this sends a message that more and more cars will go through these highways, so more and more people use their cars. Whereas if you have mass transport, it sends another message. So certainly, unfortunately, in Greece, there's there has not, this kind of thinking is not in the politician's mind. Okay, so this is yes.
For to raise the public awareness, do you refer to artists for any projects to receive their support? Because you're from the civilization of theatrical background, and everything went on the stage. So to reach the pulse of the public opinion, do you refer to artists, including the commercial artists, for help to reach the real pulse of public?
We as Greens, or?
Well, in general, in Greece.
Well, all I can say about the art, because I'm not from this field, is the fact that this sector has suffered a lot, as other sectors have suffered under the crisis, because art is something that people see as not a necessity, let's say. Some people see art as a luxury, or they see art for times when we don't have such an economic crisis as the one that we have right now. So unfortunately, I have to say that artists are among the people who are in very bad shape right now, who are suffering too. So, you have a lot of theaters closing. You have a lot of, I would say it's in its worse shape than it has been in many, many years. So,
we must motivate the Irish to be more active.
Yes, that's great. If you have any ideas, let us know.
Good for nothing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I'll ask about this European Citizens Initiative and European level participation. I think it's a fact which is also proved by some research that there's a power asymmetry regarding lobbying private interests in the European level decision making and citizens level participation. Do you think regarding particularly the costs that are needed, does this new tool somehow narrows this power asymmetry, and which way do you think is more effective, lobbying directly or?
Certainly in the EU there are 10,000 lobbies right now in Brussels, so you understand what this means. Most of these lobbies are people working for the industry and for big money basically. So this is the issue of funding in general, and funding initiatives such as the ECI has been quite prevalent. It is an important issue. There will be, I think, people who have participated in these committees to set up the ECIs are coming up with a number of proposals, and one of the most important proposals actually has to do with the issue of how much money actually do you need to have to actually propose something like this, to register an ECI and actually carry out a successful campaign to its end. So this means that, if you do need a lot of money, if we are talking about hundreds of thousands of euros, then this is not accessible to the public, and this is not what, this tool was intended in the first place. We hope that we know that the Commission is aware of this, and I think even for just to for their sort of improving their image, I think they will try to change and try to lower the costs. We hope that we'll come to a more reasonable number.
There's a question here, and
Yes.
I'll take the last one there.
Yes. Okay.
When you try to file a case with regard to an environmental issue at the domestic level, you may suffer problems with regard to rights to standing. The courts may, at some instances, say, okay, thank you for your ecological sensitivity, but this project is not particularly relevant enough or doesn't interfere enough with your life or interests to allow you to file a case against this project. I want to ask, what is the level of relevance needed? What is the threshold with regard to the eligibility to sign an ECI?
Yes, that's an important issue. I think what happens is before an ECI is submitted, there's an organizing committee that is set up of people like you and me, citizens. The committee is composed of 7 citizens. Of course, these citizens might belong to different NGOs, but they are working together, and they're the ones who sign up the registration forms for the ECI. During this process, usually, if you want to make sure that you will fall within the competency of the EU, then you do have some lawyers look it up and actually let's say, make sure that this is something that will go through, because otherwise the Commission will not accept it. I have to say it is not so difficult to do so, because we know what the competencies of the Commission of the EU, what these competencies are. So therefore, you have to fall within these competencies, and it has to be something that the EU can legislate, that the Commission can actually propose legislation. There are some other areas where the Commission cannot propose legislation, and sometimes they have to do with tax issues, for example, and this is difficult. So you can't really touch this. But other areas, the Commission does propose legislation, and you do have the right to do that. And of course, as in all areas of life, you have to have some lawyers to actually, look at the actual text and what it implies, and see, to what extent it falls within the competencies.
Yeah. My name is Tanay Sıtkuyar. I'm a part of the network, Environmental NGOs Network, cooperating with Metsos, and also Kyriakos Domaçoğlu from the North Drama. So we believe that it's very important to understand the local, regional, global damages of the projects like this. So mainly we have coal power plants and nuclear power plants which are obsolete now in the industrialized countries. They don't build it anymore, but they are dislocated to Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, Spain, and Turkey now is a candidate country, is a privileged partnership country. It's very nice that we have this European Citizens Initiatives as an instrument, but the agenda is important. We would like to know if you are interested, your institute, to cooperate with our Turkish people who are trying to prevent such projects, a workshop or something on preventing dislocation of obsolete technologies from European countries who are blocking the negotiations in energy chapter. So I'm just trying to be very to the point. So if you are willing, we are willing to do this, and please consider this, because we believe that this is the irreversibility. Without doing this, we can talk, we can be frank, we play sirtaki, we can drink ouzo, whatever, but it's just a project and nothing comes out of it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it is important. I just have to say, of course, I'm not deciding on behalf of the Institute. The president of the Institute is here, but certainly something. If you have a proposal, then bring it to us, and we'll discuss it in the within the board. And of course, we always try to support all these projects.
I'm not looking for support. I'm looking for cooperation.
Cooperation, that's fine.
I mean, we don't need money on this.
Okay.
But we need real partners who want to prevent dislocation of obsolete technologies in European area. So that's what we are trying to do as Eurosolar also. Just we don't want Europe exporting obsolete technologies to anywhere in the world.
Yeah, well, Europe is actually doing this on a number of levels. Exporting, the EU has a legislation, and a lot of times, there's some areas where certain things are banned, and within the EU, but then the EU is trying to export this technology elsewhere in the third world. So we certainly support cooperation in some.
I was invited by the leader of this member of the parliament, parliament. They were building a fuel oil power plant. So it's a pity to build a fuel oil power plant in Rhodos Island, but you can have 100% renewable energy.
Yes. Yeah.
Since we are running out of time, but it's better if we finish with the session.
Okay.
One small contribution. Since my name is Kostas, I'm with the board of the Green Institute. You refer to Rhodos. Actually, we have financed the research project. We are financing a research project on how we can go to the highest percentage of renewable energy sources in Rhodos.
100%. Okay. That's the only solution.
To the highest possible, because some scientists say it's not possible to have 100% renewable energy sources, because you need to have some balances and you have some backup systems, etc. But in any case, and I'm not a specialist on that issue. What I'm trying to say is that yes, we can cooperate. yes, there is space for this cooperation, and yes, we need to overcome all kinds of dead ends and blockages we have on our brains, especially in terms of energy, and especially in terms of islands being so close to Turkey, so far away from Greece, Greek mainland, but we need also time. Okay, because sometimes if you accelerate change, you can have a backlash, and that's what we don't want to have as Greens. We want to move. I can't tell the future.
Thank you very much, Olga.
Thank you.